Now let's move forward. One of your favorite years, I think, was 2008. And so you make it all the way to the national championship game, right? And I think you played this little team from Oklahoma called the Oklahoma Sooners. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. And so, well, why don't you talk a little bit just about that experience and talk a little bit about sort of the trash talking, but also talk about your first personal foul. I think your first and only personal foul was during that national championship game.
It was, yes. Well, a few players would just talk quite a bit of trash throughout the game, and I just sealed the game with a run for a first down, and just simply turned around and did a little bit of a gator chomp to him, and got a personal foul. And the funny story was, Coach Myers looking at me like, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Now it's going to be 3rd and long." And I go, "Coach, what are you talking about? I just got the first down." And I said, "It's going to be 1st and 10. It's just we got to back up 15 yards." But that was an amazing game for us, and great memories for us.
Well, and football players are pretty superstitious, and you're known for the eye black. So, answer 2 questions for me. Number 1, go back and tell me where the eye black started. And then tell us, you changed something for the national championship game. Most people don't even so much as change socks throughout the year because of superstition. All of a sudden, you changed one of the most noticeable things about you. So talk about where it started, and then talk about why you made a change for the national championship.
Well, we were actually getting ready to play Tennessee my junior year, and I went into the training room to get one more stretch, like 15 minutes before the game, and I noticed a few guys on our team were putting the eye black under their eyes, and I was like, you know what? If I put that under my eyes, I might be able to take a silver Sharpie and write something on it, and someone might notice. And so I was like, well, what should I write? Instantly I thought of Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And that's a perfect verse for a football player. And so I was like, all right, perfect. I put it under my eyes, and then we went out and played and won, but it really wasn't a big deal. A few local papers wrote about it, but it wasn't anything big. But I consistently did it every single week, and by the time we were playing Alabama in the SEC championship game, it became something that a lot of fans would wear to games, their verses under their eyes, and it became something that was kind of popular. And 5 minutes before you go out in the game, I'm just sitting on my locker, and I really feel like God's putting it on my heart to change the game. And I'm like, really? Are you kidding me? Now you want me to change the verse? And I was like, I'll tell you what, if we win, we'll be playing a national championship. We'll have a huge spotlight there, and I'll change the verse for that. And so we did. We played and we won. And 6 weeks later, we were going to play in the national championship game. And 2 days before the game, I went up to my parents' hotel room in Miami, and I was like, "Hey, Mom, Dad, I think I'm going to change the verse under my eyes." And they're like, "Oh, that's great. What are you going to go with?" And I was like, John 3:16. It's the essence of Christianity. It's the essence of our hope. And so they were like, "Great. Have you told Coach?" And I was like, "I'll tell him tomorrow." And so we went and had our walkthrough, and after our walkthrough, I pulled Coach Meyer to the side, and I was like, "Hey, Coach," and I just had to get it out of the way quick, and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to change my verse for tomorrow, no big deal." And he was like, "What? Philippians 4:13 got us here. You can't change it now." And I was like, "No, Philippians 4:13 didn't get us here, Coach." He was like, "Well, what verse are you going to go with?" I said, John 3:16. He was like, "Well, that's a great verse. But Philippians 4:13 got us here." I said, "No, trust me, it's going to be okay." So after talking to him, he was good about it, and I wore it under my eyes, and not really thinking a big deal or anything crazy was going to happen, but that's just how cool God is sometimes. When you do something little and you're trying to do it for Him, He can sometimes turn it into something that's amazing. And so I wore it, and we won, and 2 days later I'm sitting at lunch with Coach Meyer and my mom and my dad, and Coach Meyer gets a call, and he's like, all right, bye. No expressions. And he looks at me and he goes, "Do you know during that game, the verse you won under your eyes, John 3:16, 94 million people Googled that verse?" And I looked at him and I go, "How do 94 million people not know John 3:16? And then,
why don't you tell everybody John 3:16? Let's not assume everybody here knows.
"For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in Him will not perish but have everlasting life." And what's so cool about it, and what's so cool is that it's just a straight God story, is come full circle, and this year we're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs, and don't even think about it, but it's exactly 2 years from the day that or 3 years from the day that I put it under my eyes. And we go out there, we played the game and went in overtime, and And during that game, I threw for 316 yards, and my yards per rush were 3.16, and yards per completion were 31.6, and the peak ratings were 31.6, and the time of possession was 31:06. And again, on that day, it was the #1 trending thing on Facebook and Twitter, and again, over 90 million people Googled John 3:16. And it was just so special and so cool to see how God can use something that you just do. It's something little that you do, but God can turn into something really cool.
Absolutely. How about that? Isn't that amazing? Amazing. And before we get away from the national championship game, Tim and I talked earlier this evening, and I asked him if he wouldn't mind signing a Sooners thing for me here. And so I'm gonna hand this to him, and here I'll take that. And you can hold your microphone.
There, I think
Yeah, why don't you
makes
tell
up
him what
for
he
it.
says?
Yeah, I said it's okay. I don't mind signing a Sooners thing. I would just put, sign it and put Go Gators, Zoe National Champs. No big deal.
Okay, so we're running the timeout to the University of Florida, and all of a sudden starts getting to the NFL draft. What are you feeling as you're getting ready to go into the NFL draft? And what is the Lord really speaking into your life about your influence and saying, hey, Tim, I'm not done. I want to keep moving with this. And talk a little bit about making that transition into the NFL.
Well, it's been my dream ever since I was a little boy to be a quarterback in the NFL. And it was something that, I'd sleep with the football every night. And I would dream about those opportunities to play in the NFL. And that was my goal. And it was something that a lot of people said I couldn't accomplish. And I would never make it. I'll have to change positions. And
Tim, how often have people told you can't do stuff? I mean, really, as you were growing up, where they just said, you can't.
pretty much most of my life.
Really?
But the great thing was I had such a close support staff around me, with my parents, with my siblings, with people that were close to me that loved me and cared about me. And it didn't matter whether I was the heel or the GOAT, whether I threw 4 touchdowns or 4 interceptions. They were going to be the same, and that meant so much to me that it gave me peace when I would go out there and play, that it wasn't all about, this game of football that we hype up. And, I could go out there for a bigger purpose than just winning football games. And, so in trying to make it into the NFL, I had a lot of peace about it that, it didn't make or break me. It was a goal, something that I wanted to accomplish, but it wasn't everything.
So you make it to the Denver Broncos, and talk about a little bit of your run and just the experience of when all of a sudden the starting role becomes your starting role, and the run you have all the way. You already mentioned the game against the Pittsburgh Steelers and everything, and just a little bit about what the Lord taught you about your influence there, because they don't want to move to just the pressure of maintaining your witness even through the NFL. But just kind of talk about that run there with Denver.
Well, it was a special run, to be 1-4 and to have those comebacks and to be able to make the playoffs and play against the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the best defenses in the NFL, and at that time the #1 defense in the NFL. And I can still remember just thinking about going up against Troy Polamalu, one of the best safeties to ever play the game. And I remember one of the last plays of the regulation, I'm running a zone read and I pull it and I see Troy coming and he's like 20 yards away, and I know we're going to have a big collision, so he hits me, we go down, he tackles me, but as I'm going down, he pulls one of my bracelets and breaks it off. And I look at him when we're getting up and I said, Troy, a girl with cancer just gave me that last week. He looks at me and I'm expecting, this is the most violent player in the NFL. He looks at me and goes, oh, Timmy, I'm so sorry. I wasn't expecting him to say that at all. And, I was looking at him, I was like, oh, it's okay, man, and walking away. And he's like, God bless you, man. I'm like, yeah, you too, freak. Like, this guy's crazy. But it was just, so cool. And a few plays later, we hit the 80-yard touchdown to Demaryius Thomas to win the game. And what a special moment that was. And, it was a special run for us, and it was something that was surreal, and to be able to have those comebacks and win those games was very special.
Well, we talked about how sometimes these students, and I was sharing with Tim earlier this evening about some of the struggles we've had here in this community with a number of your friends taking their lives, and the suicide problems we've had here in West Texas. And sometimes you guys can look at Tim Tebow and say, yeah, it's easy for you, you're Tim Tebow, but talk about after the end of such a great run and the hardships that you faced, and now it seems like everything's turning against you, and all of a sudden Denver shows up and says, hey, we're trading you. How do you deal with that pressure and that opposition?
Well, quotes have always been something that have always inspired me. And something that I always cling to is, I don't know what the future holds, but I know who holds my future. And in that, you always have peace and you always have a comfort because you know that God has a plan for you. Wherever it is and whatever it is, He has a special plan for each and every one of us. And they're all different plans, but it is a special plan for your life and for my life. And just to be able to trust that gives you peace that no matter what comes at me, I will have the capability of handling it because God will never put too much on your plate that you can't handle.
How have you been able to keep an attitude of, really a positive attitude towards everyone? I mean, let's be honest, you never really get a fair shake in the media. You never really get a fair shake from ESPN. You never really do. I mean, nobody wants to give you credit because I think to give you credit means, well, they got to give God credit as well. And so everything's against you. How do you keep within your heart to always be positive towards your enemies?
Well, I think something I learned early on at Florida was to only worry about what you can control. And that's very hard because you want to try to control everything, but you can't. You can't control what everybody says about you, what they write about you, what's true or what's not true. You can't control that. But what you can control is your attitude. It's your effort. It's your character. It's your integrity. How good of a teammate you are. Those are things you can control. So that's what you need to worry about. And that's something that has been very hard. But as much as you can try to do it, I think it gives you peace because I'm going to worry about who I am and how I'm treating people, and what's my effort like, and what's my character like, and everything else, I'm going to just let it go.